All right, this is the review for quiz number 9. And so we were talking about reverbs this time, reverberation. And the basic definition I like to give for reverberation is it is the indistinct repetition of sound. So if we've got discrete echoes, if it's the exact sound that's being repeated again, full frequency, exactly the same, that's a delay. If the same frequencies are getting kind of jumbled up and mashed up into kind of an audio soup, that's more reverberation. As I probably did in the lecture, the sound you hear bouncing around this room, that's reverberation. It's not an exact repeat of those words that I said, but you hear the sounds. Okay, reverb is the indistinct repetition of sound. Good. The second question is about the types of reverberation. So number one, it can be either real, any of these can be either real or virtual plugins, and we're probably going to be dealing more with virtual plugins, but we might, but we'll definitely experience spring reverbs if nothing else, and room reverbs, whether we set up a mic for it or not. Anyway, yeah, the first is a room. And this is probably the majority of reverbs that I use are somehow trying to emulate a scoring studio or a concert hall or a church or a cathedral or a bathroom or whatever of these we want. But I classify those all under rooms, trying to make it sound like it's bouncing around inside of some sort of space. Okay. The second type would be a plate. So in old-time studios where they didn't have room to have an extra room for just sound bouncing around, they took a 4x6 sheet of metal and they shook one side and they put a transducer on the other side and picked it up, and that was the sound. I associate that kind of with Motown and kind of 60s sounds, and you can make, yeah, you can do all the same things you can do with room reverbs with the plate reverbs. Yeah, and there are some really good ones for vocals. Vocal plates are a nice effect to add. And the last one is spring reverbs. I find those most often in guitar amplifiers, and particularly kind of the surf sound, Dick Dale, if you like the movie Pulp Fiction, all of those songs, they have a lot of spring reverb on those guitars, making them sound like that. For those of you playing along with the quiz, flanger is not a type of reverb. Okay, good. So I always tell you to use an aux track for your reverb, and I've got two reasons for this. Number one is to make more CPU power, right? Reverbs are pretty expensive for computing power, and if I put one on every track, then it's going to start to eat up the power of my computer, whereas I could just make one, aux everything to that, and save some power. In addition, we get more control, and that's yeah, that's a little difficult to show you exactly, right? But you've got at least two levels of the amount that you send from your track and then the volume of that aux track. In addition to that, sometimes I will like to put an equalizer after the reverb, and then I can use the equalizer to shape the sound of that reverb. A lot of reverbs have tone shaping on them, but if I'm more comfortable with that EQ, I can do that. I can compress a reverb too, and not compress the original signal if I've got it on an aux track. If you love the 80s, right, we can put a gate on it and make a gated reverb. But these are other things that we can talk about. But that's what I mean when I say more control. Okay. Excuse me. Decay time. Now, that's the length of the reverb, right? If you want your reverb to last for a long time, you make the decay longer. If you want it more shorter, use it for more shaping, toning, kind of things that you're using, you want a shorter decay time. And if you ever see something that is in 500 milliseconds, 1 second, 1.3 seconds, 2 seconds, those seconds, exactly what that's dealing with is the amount of time it takes to drop 60 dB. Okay, and yeah, I'll be happy to talk about that for much longer with you if you want. But that's just the basic. Decay time is the length. If it gives you a specific time, that means the amount it takes to drop 60 dB. Good. Pre-delay is the last one I want to talk about. And so that's the time between when we hear the initial sound and when the reverb really starts. So the longer that time is, the more bigger. It increases the apparent size, right? So bathrooms have a lot of reverb in them. That doesn't make them sound large, right? Now, what makes it sound large, more like a stadium, more like a huge cathedral, is the amount of time between that initial sound and the reverb, and that would be the pre-delay time. Okay, thank you very much. That was quiz number 9.